It was 2014 right here in Union Beach when I bought the then Housing Secretary Julian Castro to meet Scott McQuarrie, a constituent, a homeowner who at the time was still living in a trailer in the front yard of his unfinished house a full 2 years after Sandy. Like so many New Jerseyans, Scott and his wife were stuck wading through the state's REM program. They suffered underpayments from the National Flood Insurance Program and the constant runaround from FEMA. It was also here in Union Beach where I later stood with Congressman Pallone to demonstrate the absurdity faced by the Drake family, whose flood insurance premiums spiked from $600 to over $30,000 a year due to a loophole in the mapping process. And only after our offices intervened did they get any relief. So it's fitting that we're back here in Union Beach today. I'm glad to be here to talk about what we need to do to fix our broken national flood insurance program. There's no question that the National Flood Insurance Program needs desperately reform. We New Jerseyans learned it the hard way. As I've said many times, Hurricane Sandy was a devastating natural disaster, but the delays, the denials, the disputes families faced during the claims process, that was a man-made disaster. Responsible homeowners paid their premiums for decades, assuming they'd be made whole. Instead, they faced a claim process that was stacked against them from the start, with arbitrary rules, gaping loopholes, chronic underpayments, and zero accountability. It's enough to make your head spin. And to add insult to injury, homeowners were slammed with massive premium hikes after the Bigot Waters reforms of 2012 took effect. Many of them had never even submitted a claim. That's why I led the Senate to pass the Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act of 2014 and provided families with some temporary relief. But more must be done, and now is the time to do it. We cannot afford to maintain the status quo. That's why after months of bipartisan collaboration, earlier this summer I introduced the Sustainable, Affordable, Fair, and Efficient NFIP Reauthorization Act of 2017 with the support of 4 Republicans and 5 Democrats. Now, that level of bipartisanship is in short supply these days, but I'm proud of my record of working across the aisle to fight for the best interests of New Jersey families. When else does someone see Marco Rubio and Elizabeth Warren on the same bill? So I want to thank Representative Pallone again for leading this effort in the House. Our bill takes the lessons we learned after Sandy and the affordability crisis facing New Jerseyans today, and it turns them into responsible reforms. The reality is that this program cannot survive if homeowners keep leaving it due to rising premiums. That's why our bill puts affordability first. It cuts annual premium increases nearly in half, capping them at 10%. It creates a grant program to protect vulnerable families from losing their homes due to huge rate hikes. It also invests in state-of-the-art mapping technology known as LIDAR, so we can more accurately map what is the flood risk. And it makes unprecedented investments in coastal resilience and mitigation, because every dollar we invest in mitigation generates $4 in future savings. It's the smart and fiscally responsible thing to do. We can't wait around for the next storm, nor can we wait for another administration to take action on climate change. So, especially when earlier this week, President Trump rolled back standards that require government-financed projects in flood-prone areas to plan for sea level rise. This threat is real, and New Jerseyans know it, so it's time to take action. Finally, our bill addresses the fraud, the waste, and the abuse New Jerseyans encountered in the aftermath of Sandy. We close ridiculous loopholes. We end unlimited taxpayer funding for insurers to hire flashy attorneys to drag out claim disputes in court. And we bring greater accountability to the claims review process. These are bold reforms with bipartisan support. And yet some in Washington have no interest in actually solving problems. Rather than fix the National Flood Insurance Program, they want to send it into extinction. Just last month, House Republicans passed a dangerous bill out of committee that would be like the Biggert Waters debacle of 2012, but it would be that on steroids. Premiums would skyrocket, surcharges on primary homeowners would rise by 70%. Homeowners would lose access to affordable coverage, and many families would lose their homes. Communities would face sanctions from FEMA if they fail to meet unfunded mandates, and abuse would remain rampant. So we're in a fight. In the House, there's an active effort to sabotage the program. Meanwhile, in the Senate, there are those who propose we can make no significant changes at all. But the American people deserve better than two bad choices. We don't have to choose between rigging the program for failure and preserving a broken status quo. There's a better way, and that's what my colleagues and I are fighting for. A plan to put people over insurance industry profits, to invest in resilience rather than create unfunded mandates, to reform the claims process and turn the hard lessons we've learned into action. A plan that will make our flood insurance program more affordable for homeowners, more sustainable for taxpayers, and more accountable to everyone. The American people deserve nothing less. Flood insurance isn't a political issue. Mother Nature doesn't discriminate. From the Jersey Shore to the mountains of Wyoming to the parishes of Louisiana, floods displace thousands of families each and every year. So we have to work together. We may not be able to control when disasters come our way, but we have a responsibility to learn from our past mistakes. And in doing so, we can create a better future. With that, let me introduce someone who is fighting with me to make this happen, Congressman Frank Pallone.
Let me just say, I can't say enough about Senator Menendez's efforts, not only with this legislation, but throughout the whole process in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. He was here constantly. He dealt with all the claims and the constituents who needed help, brought forth how many abuses there were with FEMA, with the flood insurance program, with contractors. He came back many, many times, and obviously he's still here today with this latest proposal dealing with flood insurance. Nobody did more, certainly at the federal level, nobody did more than him to try to deal with the problems that we faced in Union Beach and the Bayshore and up and down the state in the aftermath of the storm. And I also want to thank the mayor, Mayor Paul Smith. I'll never forget the time during the storm and after that you and the council members spent trying to help people. We're really at ground zero. This was the town that was the most impacted anywhere in the country by Superstorm Sandy, and the mayor was there every day, working hard, trying to make a difference. And now, of course, working with the council to try to get the Army Corps project, which Senator Menendez and I and others have been working on to make sure that we have a flood control and beach replenishment project here, right here in the future to guard against future storms. I don't want to repeat some of the details of this legislation. This was Senator Menendez's legislation. I'm happy to be able to introduce it in the House, and Congressman Pascrell is also involved with it. He faced the same kind of problems up in Passaic and Bergen County that he represents. But I do want to say that the flood insurance reauthorization, or the flood insurance program, expires in September. So it's important that we pass this legislation because it does expire. But we don't want to just basically do the status quo, because the status quo was flawed and a lot of people suffered because of it. We had far too many people that were denied payouts they deserved in the wake of the storm, and they had this complicated appeals process that left them feeling that the flood insurance program and FEMA were focused on denying claims instead of paying out claims. And so many people in Union Beach and elsewhere were basically, hitting a bureaucratic wall, which we tried to deal with, but basically can only be dealt with effectively by changing the way the flood insurance program operates. And I remember the TV show Frontline last year that concluded that these insurers, the very insurers who are often denying claims by people here and elsewhere in the Bayshore, were making all kinds of profits. Frontline last year concluded that the insurers made more than $400 million in profits from FEMA in the year that Hurricane Sandy devastated the Atlantic coast. It was their highest profit in the 4 years from 2011 to 2014. So this is at the same time that they were denying claims. It was essentially unconscionable. So that's why Senator Menendez and I are trying to change the way the flood insurance program operates, because we just can't have the status quo continue. We've got to rein in the abuses, and we've got to mitigate the problems that people faced bureaucratically, and also limit the profits that these insurance companies were making, because basically they rely on FEMA and they get reimbursed for everything and more. So I don't want to get into the details. Senator Menendez got into the details of what the bill actually does, and I'm not going to repeat all that. But I just wanted to say that in addition to this bill, we're going to soon reintroduce the Disaster Assistance Recoupment Fairness Act. This is the bill that was created to stop FEMA from collecting excess money it handed out to homeowners following the storm. I don't know, I think some of you are aware that this is that FEMA was trying to recoup money that they said they shouldn't have given out. We call it the Preventing the Clawback Bill. And I just think it's ridiculous that, you know, somebody who's a victim of a storm gets some help from FEMA, and then, you know, a few weeks later, a few months later, they said, oh, we gave you that by mistake and you have to give it back.